Are you a mother, father, or you are involved in caring for children? If yes, then listen to Ask the Pediatricians every Thursday by 10 a.m. for insightful discussion on popular child health topics such as dangerous child health practices, immunization, infant feeding, developmental milestones, and so much more. You also get to ask questions on these topics and listen to answers to real-life child health issues by a pediatrician. Ask the Pediatricians Foundation is devoted to health education and information of parents and caregivers of children in the community to support you in raising healthy children. Don't miss Ask the Pediatricians with Dr. Gani because it's informative, educative, and interactive. Ask the Pediatricians Hour, the program for caring parents.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to a fresh episode of Ask the Pediatrician Hour. I am Bimi Salaboide. I'm a pediatrician. I'm the CEO of Ask the Pediatricians Foundation. Ask the Pediatrician Hour is a program where we get to discuss important topics that has to do with the health of our children. And on Ask the Pediatricians Foundation, our mission is to ensure that no child dies from preventable causes of death. And thank you so much. We've been getting lovely feedback. This week, a parent reached out to me based on the last week topic we had of meningitis. Her child had meningitis and she found out episode very helpful. And I think she has learned a lot and she reached out to me. So thank you so much. We appreciate such feedback to know that some of the things we discuss here, you are finding them very, very useful. So I really want to thank you for joining today's broadcast on whichever platform you are listening or watching me on. Thank you to those who are joining us on Fresh Waves Radio, you're listening to me right now, or you're watching on the Fresh Waves Radio Facebook page. Thank you for joining us. And for those who are watching on Ask the Pediatrician Facebook page, Facebook group, YouTube channel, and those who are also listening on our Ask Dr. Gbemi ATP podcast platform. Thank you so much for joining us today. Remember that if you want to listen to any of the past topics, you can always go either to the podcast on our YouTube channel or our Facebook page. All those videos, all those broadcasts will always be there. And you can also read also on our website at www.askthepediatricians.com. And if you have any questions on any topic or that we have discussed or that we're going to discuss today as well, feel free to head over to our Facebook group and you can post your questions there from Mondays to Saturdays, and myself and my colleagues and our moderators will be there to do justice to those questions. You can be sure that any answer you get from our Facebook group is the evidence-based answer from a pediatrician's perspective. And I really want to appreciate those of you who often tag us whenever you see people asking questions on social media. I see all your tag on Instagram, on Facebook. You always want to ask the pediatricians, and some of you are always recommending for such parents to go ask those questions on Ask the Pediatrician. Thank you so much. We really appreciate you for the promotion of our platform, and thank you for joining us in that journey in our mission to ensure that no child dies from anything that is completely preventable. So thank you so much and welcome to this new episode of Ask the Pediatrician Hour. And as you can see, for those of you who are watching, for those of you who have seen the flyer, today we're talking about fall injuries. Okay, I was just thinking, what am I going to talk about this week? And then I was answering questions on our Facebook group, as I usually do after my usual work days. And within a space of an hour, I have answered 3 questions about children falling. And what really, I mean, children falling is not the issue here, because I mean, we know that children tend to fall a lot. That's not the issue. But what really worries me was the age of these children that were falling on our Facebook group. So we have one of a 7-week-old child who fell from the mother's hand, and I have another 2 6-month-old children who also fell. One actually suffered a dislocation of the elbow or something, and I was very, very worried, because these are age group of children that should not be falling at all. These are children that we call not yet mobile. These children are not yet crawling, they're not yet walking. So their chances of falling should be almost zero. So when we see falls in that age group, it tends to worry us a lot. And at times, I also see a lot of parents in my course of answering questions on our group talking about my children fell, he's falling several times, hitting his head on the floor. And parents just say it flippantly, that as if there's no big deal there, or the child has fallen, and the child is falling several times. And it is kind of struck me that many parents, sometimes we don't realize how important fall can be, how important and how devastating a fall injury can be to children for several reasons. And so I decided that, okay, I really need to address this topic. We definitely need to address it, because a fall can make a difference in the life of a child. We're talking about significant difference in the life of a child. I've seen children who are perfectly healthy, normal, developing well, sustain a fall injury and suffered severe brain injury. And as a result, they develop lifelong disability. And this can be quite heartbreaking, for parents, So falls, and it's not as trivial as we make it out to be. So it is something important, and it's something we as parents must know. And more than anything else, we have to make deliberate efforts to prevent falls in our children. And so I'm going to be talking about falls in children. And as usual, I always like to give you an outline of what I'm going to talk about. I want to talk about what is fall. I want to define it, even though most of us already know what it is. I want to talk about the magnitude of the problem. And then I also want to talk about why is it so important for us to talk about falls in children, because why is this something that is bothering a pediatrician? Why do I need to do a whole 1-hour discussion about falls in children? I'm going to talk about why it is so important. And of course, we'll talk about what's the causes of fall, how it happens. But more importantly, I think my focus today is how can we prevent these falls? Our children should not be falling, okay? And no most of it, we do our best. And sometimes parents feel so bad. So actually for the 7-week-old baby, like any baby falling at that age, for us as pediatricians, we class it as negligence on the part of the parents. And I know you don't, most of us love our children and we want to give them our best. And we try our best. So it's sometimes painful when people say we're negligent. But if a child who is not supposed to fall is having a fall, that's what we're going to class it as. So we really need to talk about how we can prevent it. I know sometimes, we things can happen not deliberately, sometimes since children are abused deliberately, but sometimes children can suffer some injuries out of our omission of doing the right things. And that is still classed as abuse as well. And that is where negligence come in. And so please, I want us as parents to please listen. I'm going to focus my emphasis today on how we can prevent these falls. I don't want to be hearing or reading of 6 weeks, 2-month-old, 5-month-old falling. We shouldn't be having that conversation at all. So please, I want you to lend me your ears so that we can talk about how we can prevent it, how we can make sure it does not happen at all. So thank you so much. So let's talk about what is a fall. A fall can be defined as an unplanned and sudden descent to the ground or the floor or a lower level, resulting in injury. So when a child kind of drop, or anything that make a child to drop, and maybe from the hand or from the bed, and to another lower surface or to the floor, and then those children now develop an injury, then we classify that as a fall, or you can even say a fall injury. And that's why I decided to put it as fall injuries, because it's not just that the child fell. Sometimes children can fall and nothing happens, but I think we are more worried about those falls that result in significant or in any injury to the child. And so that's what we're talking about today. And it is a very common thing. In fact, it's one of the leading cause of children getting hospitalized in the United States, for example. So there are a lot of statistics which I don't want to bore us with, because different people, I'm not sure we have statistics for Nigeria, for example, but in the United States, it was reported in 2012 that 34,000 children between the age of 0 to 14 years were hospitalized for unintentional falls. So that is a huge figure. So a lot of children, falls in children is often a major issue, and a lot of children get hospitalized for this. And we know why children are prone to fall. So when we talk about falls, of course, adults also can fall, but I guess we are more worried about children. There are many reasons why children are prone to falls, because children are very, number one, actually the infants below the age of 1 year, and even our toddlers, their sense of awareness of danger is not that great. They sometimes they are not aware of the risk to themselves, and then they want to explore. They are curious about what is going on there and what is going on there, and then there are a lot of hazards. We as adults, this is a open fall. I shouldn't do this. I shouldn't do that. So you're able to keep yourself safe as much as possible. But sometimes children don't have that ability to assess the risk, and so they are not able to assess this is a risk, and this can lead to fall. And so that is why we are there as the parents, to make sure that we protect our children and we keep them from these falls and this injury. So it is very common. And where do this fall happen? In the playground. Children are playing and running. They are not very conscious of what is going on around them, and then that can lead to a fall. Or sometimes children can sleep. Actually, if we leave all the toys out running around, they run inside the toys. They sleep on the Lego or something, and then they can fall. Even let's start from newborn babies. When we're giving them a bath, newborn babies are very slippery. They are very slippery, and they wriggle a lot. And I've seen babies wriggle out of the hands of their mothers during the process of giving them a bath, because if applied soap and water, they can fall from that as well. Even in the hospital, that's why you see us always wrap the babies, newborn baby, when we're drying them up, they are wrapped in blankets so that we can have a good grip on them. You can't just hold them, because they can slip out of your hands. And of course, children, especially once they start crawling and they start walking, and they're not yet steady, and they are so curious, what is that? They are sitting on their chair, they want to grab something on the table, and they're not aware of the fact that just stretching out their hands in that process, they can have a fall, especially if nobody is also monitoring them. And also sometimes when they are climbing around 18 months old, they begin to climb. They climb the table, they climb everything, and some of them also want to jump, and they are not sometimes assessing how high they're climbing, how high the jump is, and in the process they can fall. Or maybe we are mopping the floor and all that, children can sleep in the bedroom and all that. So these are things that are common. So falls in children is common, and unfortunately most times these falls can lead to serious injuries, so which is what we don't want to happen. Luckily, most of the falls, the children just fall, maybe they have a graze, a cut, and they cry, and that's the end. But sometimes falls can also lead to serious injuries. We're talking about fracture, where that is break of the bone. We're talking about dislocation of of one bone from the other. We're talking about head injury, especially brain injury, because children from the age of 0 to 5, as we have said over time, their brains are still immature, the brain is still growing, and any injury to that developing brain can lead to serious disability like cerebral palsy and lots of disabilities that can happen. And so that is why we want to do everything possible to avoid these falls. And so children, especially under the age of 5, if you have toddlers, you have preschoolers under the age of 5, we really need to monitor them. They are the ones that are prone to these falls. They are the one, because of all those factors about them which we have talked about. So we really need to be aware of all these falls and the injuries that can happen to children when they fall. It can be very serious, and it can be very devastating. So, and the level of injury depends on 3 factors. Number one, from what height is the child is falling from. Okay, so if child is climbing on a low table, maybe the sofa, and then the sofa is a very low sofa and very close to the floor, maybe a carpeted floor. Of course, the level of injury in that child will not be as high as a child who is jumping maybe from the dining table or from the high chair and all that. So the lower the height, the less the danger. And it's important for us to take note of that, because this will come in when we start talking about how we can avoid all these fall injuries, how we can prevent them. So the lower the height, the less the danger to the children. And then what surface are the children falling to? So if a child fell onto a soft carpeted surface, it's not the same as a child falling on a concrete floor. So for example, some playground or some compound really for those ones in Nigeria, they are actually like concrete cemented floor. If a child fell in that situation, you can imagine that the impact is harder than a child that fell maybe in a garden that is grass and is soft cushioned area. So it's also very important. And also, what does the child come in contact with, or with which part of the body they come they hit the ground? So if a child maybe in the process of falling also fall on something that is sharp like a furniture or things like that, or glass, they are going to sustain more serious injuries than if they fell on a plain surface that doesn't have anything on it. All those things will come into place when we talk about prevention. So the most important thing for us to know is that children, especially children below the age of 5, they are prone to falls, and these falls can lead to serious injuries. Okay, and we should not trivialize falls in children. And sometimes, luckily, most of our children, the falls are not so bad, or and they get away. But remember, we never know when a child is going to have a fall that is going to cause very severe injury, especially head injury. And so it is so important for us to know about this. And like I said, my emphasis today is on how do we prevent these falls? How do we make sure that our children don't keep falling and sustain severe injury that can make a whole lot of difference to their lives, So that's all. Let's talk about, and now when I'm talking about this prevention, I'm going to take them in different categories. Okay, I didn't mention some other causes of falls because we don't expect that to happen. But I think I really need to talk about that because some of the falls I've talked about have nothing to do with the children. Sometimes it has to do with us, the parents. So, for example, a 7 weeks old falling from the hands of a mother. Sometimes it's because either we're not paying attention or the mother is tired, and then we hold the baby in our hands and we're tired, we're dozing off, and the baby just slip out and fell. It has happened. It has happened several times, and that's why I tell new mothers, you really need help. You need to ask for help. We have to be aware of that. And of course, sometimes these days a lot of distraction for us as mothers. We're pressing our phone, we're answering a phone call at the same time, we're trying to solve the children at the same time. It is very easy. Also, sometimes where we put our children, some of us, when you put your baby on your open bed, the adult bed that doesn't have guards and railings, it is very easy. Some of us don't, we think, oh, the child is too small, it cannot roll. Even babies, they can roll. They can wiggle, and in the process they can fall from the bed. So that's why you need to put them in their own cots that has guards and stuff like that. So these are also reasons why children can fall, and this can be very, very serious. So now I'm going to spend the rest of the time emphasizing how do we prevent these falls, because we don't even want these falls to happen in the first place. So now I'll take them age by age category. Let's talk about babies. Let me talk about babies. We're talking about 0 to 1 year. Okay, so let's talk about them. Normally, we think babies should not fall because we think they are not moving yet. Okay, but they can wiggle. All right, so don't be surprised that you leave your baby on one corner of the bed, and when you wake, even newborns, you meet them on another corner of the bed. So they wiggle, and by the time they're about 5 to 6 months, they start to roll. They start to roll over. So once they are in that state, then they can fall. Okay, they can roll from the bed onto the floor, and it happens all the time. So please, we need to avoid that. And so that is why your baby should sleep on a bed that has guards. Okay, so most of our children's cots, they have these parts of the furniture that is high, so that even the child rolls, there's something at the other hand. They can't come out of that bed. But I know some of us also use bed where we don't have a proper cot for our children, and so they sleep with us on our own bed. And some of us, our bed does not have those kind of guards. So I always tell such parents, if you live in that situation, it's best you keep your baby closest to the wall. Okay, so that wall will be like a guard on that side. That's number one. Then you can put other things to guard the baby on the other side. So it's either you yourself put your human shield there as a guard, or you put like pillows around there. So at least there's something on both sides of the baby that the baby cannot roll over, and it should be the innermost part. Don't put that baby close. Some of us are just we don't think about it. We are just like, oh, this is a baby, it's not going, nothing's going to happen. So you just put the baby right at the edge of the bed, and then you go, I want to go and pick the clothes outside, I want to go to the kitchen quickly, the baby's already sleeping. Yes, but the baby can still roll. So make sure you put the babies closest to the inner part of the bed, and make sure there's a guard and there are other guards, and if possible, make sure that you are there as well. Also, when we want to change our babies, this is another time when babies can fall as well. We want to change the diaper, we want to change the nappies, and then before you start changing, I'll recommend get everything you need. Don't put the baby already on the changing table or on the bed, and then you're running from this, you're running for that. These things can happen in split seconds. So make sure you have everything ready before you put the baby down. And remember, one of the principles I said that the lower the height from which a baby is falling, the less likely the injury. What that means is sometimes it's best to change the baby on the floor. So put on a mat, your mats, a baby mats, whatever, or clothes, just do it on the floor instead of doing it on the bed. It may be easier for you to do it that way, because it's very difficult for you to roll. And that's another principle I should have also mentioned. If you are not sure, if you don't have bed guards and all that, let your baby sleep on the floor. Put the baby's mat or whatever or bed mattress on the floor, and let the baby lie down on the floor. A baby on the floor cannot fall because the child is already on the floor, and that will reduce the chances of the baby falling. So you can do things on the floor, or you make sure you do it properly. And sometimes some of the changing table have straps. You can also use straps to keep the baby so that the baby will not fall easily. Also, when we're carrying our baby, let's avoid carrying babies in the chair, like rock chair and all that. It's not the best, okay? So it's best because baby can, anything can happen. Somebody can bump into you. The baby can fly out of that chair. So sometimes it may be, apart from, I know sometimes when you're transferring them from the car into the house, but we have to be very careful. But it's best to take the baby out and let the baby be on you rather than carry them in the chair, because active babies can come out of that. Another thing we always have been preaching against is using baby walkers. Those baby walkers has been banned in some countries like Canada, and many pediatricians speak against it. I don't know why mothers love it so much, and it's one of the things. Number one, baby walkers don't make a baby walk. Okay, you can have a physiotherapist. They actually slow down your baby from walking. It's actually a contradiction that they are supposed to be walkers, but they actually don't help babies to walk. They actually makes walking more difficult for babies. So please, no baby walkers. I always tell mothers when they post those pictures, throw them away. All right. If you're a new mom, don't buy them. Your babies do not need them. And don't put your baby in baby walkers. They are one of the most common cause of falls and injuries in babies less than 1 year old. Okay. Most of them have mobile. Most of them even have these what's it called? They have their tires or something that makes them move. And because that's the idea, you want baby to be moving. But the truth is, a baby who is at that age, they don't have that awareness and safety in them to know when to move, when not to move. So we have that. I'm sure if you go to our Facebook group, you can find out that story of a mother who put her baby in a walker, and the baby just fell right from the staircase in that walker and sustained severe injury. So these are not made up stories. These are real stories. And that is why we as pediatricians, we don't want baby walkers. We don't recommend them. They put your baby at risk of falls, and the babies can sustain more severe injury in them because they can't even, they tend to make babies fall from higher heights because it's mobile, and sometimes some people don't even know when it is happening, because you put your baby in the walker, you have that sense of everything is fine, and then you go back to your kitchen, do a lot of things, and the baby is moving, and the baby sometimes moved and sustained injuries in the process, because at that time the child is not walking, and they are just moving with the walker. It's the walker that is moving them, and they have no control over to stop and all that. So it's a very dangerous piece of equipment. So there's no reason why you should use your money as a mother, as a father, to buy something that will cause harm to your child. So if you have a baby walker, throw them away. I'm serious, throw them away. They put children in danger, and it can cause this catastrophic injuries. So even when your babies are in pram or pushes, make sure that you have your safety harness on, okay? So make sure you don't have. I saw a video on Facebook or YouTube recently where a grandmother brought the baby out, put the baby in a pram, and she was trying to close the door, and the pram started to move. I'm sure most of you saw that video, and it luckily, a man who was just busy doing something else saw that moving, and he ran. And that's how that baby was saved, because the grandmother in the place of running after the pram, she herself tripped and fell, and that pram was just rolling, into the main road, and that baby would have suffered serious accident if not for that good Samaritan that was able to run with all his might to grab hold of that. So when you're putting your baby in prams and pushers, be very aware that the safety is on, it spreads down so that it can't move until you're ready to move. So please, these are things we can do as far as the baby is concerned. And I also want to say, if you're tired, please don't carry your baby. If your baby is, especially when they are colicky, you are sleep deprived, put the baby in the cot, or put them on the floor. It's okay. Babies can cry. The cry does not kill babies. I know mothers think, oh, every time baby cries, you have to always fix everything. No, it's okay for babies to cry. That's the only language they speak at that age. So if you're already tired and you are dozing off, you're sleep deprived, that's not the time to go carry your baby, because I'm sure that's what happened with that 7-week-old baby that fell from her mother's, and the mother must have been too tired and sleep off, and she won't even know when baby is falling from her hand. So please do not carry the baby. Call for your partner, call for help, and if there's no help, put baby in the cot, take a break, put baby on the floor, on the mat on the floor, take a break. After a while, when you are better, it's better that way than for you to carry that baby and the baby dropping from your hand. Baby that's on the floor, nothing's going to happen to the baby. Baby on the cot with all the guards on, nothing's going to happen. So let's make sure we don't carry baby when we're too tired and not able to monitor them properly. Now let's go to the toddlers. Yes, these are the they are the main group when it comes to falls, the toddlers, because now definitely there's a reason why they can fall. They start walking, they are mobile. For the babies less than 6 months, they are not mobile. So if they fell, we, the parents, are responsible, okay? And that you're the one who with predation to blame. So that's why I've talked about babies first. So let's do our part. But for these ones, yes, they are the ones putting themselves at risk. They are walking, but they are not yet having danger awareness. So, and they are not very steady, especially in the first 1 year when they're still learning to walk. So they walk, without their toddler waddling gaits. They easily trip, they usually fall, and so they are more prone to fall. And so what can we do to help our children when they are walking? I talk about making our homes child safe. Okay, so when you have toddlers, you can't afford to have many things open in your living room. That's not the time to put your crystals and all those things on all the things that are very fragile all over the place. No, you want to have an open, endless space with nothing. So that's why people have their playroom for children where there's really nothing encumbering the space. Or if you don't have that, even if it's your sitting room, please, you may have to take things away. The floor should be as free, as open as possible. You can't afford to have clutters when you have a toddler who is learning to walk in your house. They are going to fall a lot. They're going to trip on things. They're going to stumble, and that can be dangerous. So make sure there's always a clear area. All the tripping hazards, electric cords. Some of us, we have all our cords for charging our phones, for the TV, everything crisscrossing around the house. No, that is okay if you are living alone. When you have a toddler, everything better be packed. You may even have to use sellotape to tape them down to the floor so they won't constitute trip as for the children. All the corners of our benches, of our tables, if you come to my clinic, we have something like a pad on those surfaces, because babies can, they can bump on them and then they can suffer injuries. So you have to cover them. You have to make them cover with something soft and smooth. So if you may want to, if you have your children's room upstairs and they have to come downstairs, you may have to put a baby gate so that they can't come out when you don't want them to come out. So from where they have to where other parts of the house where there can be injury, they can go get themselves tangled up in something, you want to install a baby gate so that they, actually at the bottom of stairs as well, so that they can come down at the top and the bottom, so they can't come down the stairs when they're not able to walk down the steps. So you have to make sure. And if you're using things like high chairs or baby chairs, you have to make sure you have all the safety harness in them so that they can't easily move. They can stay. If you're going to put your children in trolleys and all that when you're going shopping, make sure you have control over that. All right. So if your baby is already old enough to climb, they can climb out of there of that their cuts. I'm sure some of you have seen those videos on Instagram. We all laugh at them and see it as cute when those babies try to do what I call a jailbreak, where they climb out of their cuts and all that. It's funny, but it's also a dangerous thing for them, because then they can easily fall. Okay, in that process they can fall. So please make sure you don't give them like toys or pillows, things inside the cots that will make it easier for them to use as leverage for climbing out, because in the process of climbing out they can sustain injuries. And I think the most important thing is that when we have toddlers, we need to monitor them, because they're so fast and they move so fast sometimes, especially when they're about 2, when they decide to run as well. So you need to monitor them. You can't afford to leave these children alone, to be playing alone, and no, we are not there. So it's either they are with us, or we are monitoring what they are doing. So we really, really need to make sure to monitor our children. And if you have children and the whole place is quiet, you better go check what they are doing. Make sure we monitor our toddlers. Okay, now for the other children under 5, remember that even though the children can climb, even though they can jump and all that, but they don't have as much risk assessment like you as a parent, and they don't have as much danger awareness. So they always want to try things and they are not thinking, I can hurt myself in the process. So we need to monitor them closely. We should avoid bunk beds in children who are under 9 years old, and also you don't want them to be playing on the bunk top, especially for the under 5 one. And even though you say, oh, their older siblings are there, their older siblings are still children, and they don't hold that responsibility. That responsibility is us as parents to make sure that our children are well supervised at all times. Let's make sure our windows, once they can reach the windows, you lock the windows. Okay, you have to lock it or put some safety measures around it. Let's take away all the sharps. Okay, there's a time I saw a picture on Facebook. I see a lot of pictures sometimes, and people think it's nice. I see a mother who is in the kitchen with 3 children. One is doing homework. She's holding one in her hands. She's stirring something in the pot. And people were like, oh, wow, multitasking mother. Oh, that's good. That's great. I was screaming. This is a danger. It's an hazardous situation. Please don't take your children to the kitchen. There is no multitasking when it comes to children and safety, okay? If you want to cook, you cook without the children in the kitchen. It's either you sort out the children in the living room, make sure they are okay, or they are sleeping and or have somebody else who is looking outside them, then you go to your kitchen. Please, under 5 should not be going into the kitchen at all. At all. They should not. Don't let them come to give you anything in the kitchen. Don't let them come and take anything in the kitchen. It's risk. The risk is too much, and so though that's not even about fault, but that is about general risk, because the kitchen is one of the most hazardous parts of the house. The fire, the sharps, the knives, so many risks. Please don't let children come at all into and children sometimes don't walk, they just run. Tell them they just run. So in the process they can trip, they can fall. So you don't even want them to come around areas where they can have this kind of injuries. So please don't allow them in the kitchen. Another very dangerous area in the house is the bedroom. It's very slippery, or even for that part of the house, especially when you have just finished mopping and all that. If you're having like tiles and wooden surfaces, during your mopping, they are very wet surfaces, wet floors, very risky for everybody, including adults. So actually the kitchen is also one area that we tend to mop a lot, because there's always spills and stuff. So again, why we don't want the children in the kitchen, because then they sleep and then there's something hot on the stove. It's one of the most hazardous places. So please encourage children not to come into that area. And if there's a spill, you wipe it yourself and do it immediately. Don't tell the children to go and do it. They won't do it properly. Do it well, okay? And when the children are eating, it's possible they sit on the dining or the high chair for the toddlers, and then there's little or no movement, so that's the risk of spills and all that is less. Also in the bedroom, let's not allow children to go into the bathrooms alone and say, oh, just go and do whatever you want to do, go and have your bath, go and have your shower. That's another very dangerous area of the house. We need to be very mindful of areas of the house that are dangerous, and we need to be mindful of our children when they're in those areas. So it's very important. The bedroom is another dangerous area, just like the kitchen. Children can drown in the bathtub. Children have drowned in a bucket of water. So you don't need to have a swimming pool for that to happen. Children can trip in the bedroom and fell into water, and that's it. And it doesn't take up to 5 minutes for that process to be completed. So that is why children should never go into those areas unsupervised. And if possible, if you can have all these anti-slip mats on the floor of your bedroom and all that, that will also be very helpful as well. So also, if you are the type that you have glass area in your house, children sometimes they fall, they play rough, especially for boys sometimes, and they can crash into those things. So if possible, if you want to avoid having glass doors or things like that, or mirrors, it's possible, fine. If you have young children, your focus in your house is not fancy, it is safety. So I know it's not easy. That's why some people just have a separate area for the children to do their own thing, but you want to make sure that you either you make it labels or put something around it that make the children to know, and if possible use what we call a shatter resistant film and all that. So you can even put furniture around the glass area so that children cannot run into them, or fall into them. So that can be another safety measure. Okay, another thing, balconies. Again, very hazardous areas in the house. Please, children should not be playing in the balconies alone without an adult. Sometimes you have to lock it. So the door that open into the balconies, for those of us that will live in upstairs, you have to lock it. If you have children, you have to lock it, because sometimes they've gone there and you don't even know they're there. So you have to lock it up as much as possible, and don't make it a play area at all. Don't go and put all the play stuff there. It's better the children play in their own room or in the living room where you have cleared out all this stuff, rather than for them to play on the balcony and all that. Make sure that the furniture, if you put furniture there, don't put the furniture near the railings. Let it be closer to the house path as well. So it's better to not even just allow them to do that as well. So these are things we can do. And also when it comes to, there are other prevention as well when it comes to playground. All right. So play areas, we need to make sure that when the children are in the playgrounds, check first that the equipment are safe. So some of the equipment in some of these play areas, it could have been damaged and nobody knows, and your children may just go in and start to use it, and then they can fall. So you may fall for as parent. Check, make sure you're also there. Don't just like go and play and then you are somewhere far away reading a book or something. Children can still sustain injury. Children must always be supervised at all time, and make sure it's age appropriate playground for them. That of the younger children should be different from that of the older children. And most places, most playgrounds where people are thinking, they always make sure that the floor of such places are soft. You see, either they make it wood chips or sand or rubber, or something grass, like something like all those synthetic grasses and all that. Something soft, not concrete, not glass, not those ones that can really cause injuries for the children. So these are things that we should do. So I've already talked about no baby workers, please, no baby workers at all, and so avoid them completely. All right, so we've been talking about faults in children. And I'll talk about how we can avoid these falls in children. It's so important. Please always be aware, children below the age of 5, brain is developing, and you don't want any injuries to that brain. And that is why you have to make sure we don't allow our children to suffer falls, because that's one of the commonest reasons why they develop this head injury, brain injury. Okay, so falls are common causes of injuries in children. They can result in fractures, they can result in cuts, they can result in head injuries, dislocation of, so many things can happen with falls, and the severity of that fall depends on the height from which the child is falling from, and what surface the child is landing on, and what other things the child eats themselves on in the process of that fall. So all the safety measures, and I think we have some of these measures. We're still putting to put more posters on our Facebook group, on all the platforms. Please, let's remember them. Let's remember all these safety measures. Institutes them. We have to be consciously looking around and say, is this safe? Is it safe? You know, so those are the things we can do. If you want more information, there are lots of websites, there are a lot of organizations that are into child safety and prevention, and they have lots of features of or flyers and information about all these topics I've talked about. And I think I'll work on our Facebook graphics team to make sure that they also produce some of these things and put it on our platform so that we can serve as reminders for us as parents. So let's make sure we prevent falls in our children. And if a fall has happened, what do we do? So if it's a minor fall, maybe a cut, a scrape, we've had a topic or a talk on first aid care. So you may want to revisit that. So you can just, clean the wound, apply dressing, and that will be all. But if it's a serious fall and the child is bleeding severely and all that, please, you have to take them to the hospital. You have to take them to the hospital. And so I get a lot of questions, oh, my child has fallen, he cried and he slept off, and I don't know whether the child is okay or not. So if you're not sure whether the child is okay or not, go to the hospital. So that's the job of our professionals to check the child, And for head injury, what are the signs you should watch out for? If a child has fallen and hits their head, especially if they have a bump, usually you can just apply ice pack on the bump and that may be all. But watch out for things like this, okay? If the child is bleeding from the nose, from the mouth, or from the ears, you have to take them to the hospital. That's a serious fall. If the child become unconscious after falling, the child become unconscious, they are not arousable, you can't wake them up, please, they have to go to the hospital. If the child is drowsy or there's any what we call change in the level of consciousness, you have to take them to the hospital. That's a sign of head injury. Or the child starts to vomit. They're vomiting 2 times, 3 times. That's a serious sign of head injury. You have to take them to the hospital as well. Or sometimes it could be the child has what would look like clear, colorless water coming out from the nose of the ears. There's one mother that asked that question. They said the child looked like the child is having catarrh. I was so worried that this child had a fall. The child may have, if the child doesn't have catarrh before and now suddenly have this white colorless fluid flowing from the nose or the ears, that child may have suffered a fracture of the skull. That colorless fluid may be what we call the cerebrospinal fluid, which is the water that surrounds the brain and the spinal cord. That is serious. So that child needs to go to the hospital. So don't say it's catarrh. The child may be having a serious head injury, or the child is sleeping too much. They're not waking up. You have to take them to the hospital. So those are signs of serious head injury where it has led to some injury in the brain. Some of them will recover. Some of them may have bled in the brain. Sometimes the neurosurgeons have to take out the blood. So it's very important the earlier you get to the hospital, the better. Some of them, you see that the part of the head, the skull is going down. It's actually what we call a depressed fracture. So fracture in children may not always be bone breaking into two. It may be depression of the skull, and they also have to go to the hospital because sometimes we have to elevate that depressed fracture as well. So if you notice all these things, go to the hospital. If you're not sure, if you think the fall is serious, you're not sure what to do, you don't lose anything going to the hospital. Because I think I saw a question of a mom who said, oh, the child had a fell, and then the way the leg is now walking is looking different and all that. Like, that is no brainer. That child has to go to the hospital. Maybe the child has suffered a fracture, and that has caused the abnormal shape in the legs, and that is what the mother is saying. So, but more than anything else, more than we treating all the head injury, the fracture, the dislocation, the cause, and the scrapes and all that, more than anything else, what we should be aiming for as parents is to make sure that these falls do not even happen at all. They should not be happening, and they should not be happening all the time. I know it's practically impossible 100% to say the children will not fall at all. Yes, but we can do our best to limit it as much as possible, and of course to make sure that even after it happens, it's not going to be those major falls. So please take a look around your house today. If you have toddlers, if you have babies less than 5, please take a look around and make sure that your home is child safe. Make sure everything we discussed about all the things that we need to do to prevent these falls, you have done them. Please pray with your baby walkers if you still have them in your house, or don't give it to another mother, just throw it away or return it to the shelves. So do everything that you need to do so that our children will not have falls and they will not have head injury. If you have more tips, check it out on our Facebook group and page. We're going to put them there as well. And if you have any questions about falls or any other topic as relates to the health of our children, remember you can always post your question on Ask the Pediatricians Foundation Facebook group from Mondays to Saturdays, 24 hours every day, and we will do our best to answer those questions. So till I come here again, and of course you can also get opportunity to ask me your questions live on Mondays. So on Mondays I do something similar, but it's on 6 p.m. on Mondays for 6 p.m. West African time. We do ATP Live, where you can ask those questions. For Thursdays for teaching, but remember you can post your question on our Facebook group, and I'll try and answer them. So till I come here again next week with another broadcast where we'll talk about something that's important about the health of our children. This is to wish you a wonderful day, and to remember to always keep our children safe and keep them from falling. Have a wonderful day, and it is bye from me. Bye.
Are you a mother, father, or you are involved in caring for children? If yes, then listen to Ask the Pediatricians every Thursday by 10 a.m. for insightful discussion on popular child health topics such as dangerous child health practices, immunization, infant feeding, developmental milestones, and so much more. You also get to ask questions on these topics and listen to answers to real-life child health issues by a pediatrician. Ask the Pediatricians Foundation is devoted to health education and information of parents and caregivers of children in the community to support you in raising healthy children. Don't miss Ask the Pediatricians with Dr. Bami, because it's informative, educative, and interactive. Ask the Pediatricians Hour, the program for caring parents.